Greetings. Welcome to this week as we study African traditional religions. I'm so excited about learning more about this incredible topic that's so close to home for our class, which is being held currently in Uganda, but this class will also be taught in other African countries. And we have the privilege of Dr. Josh Bowman being our special guest today and lecturing on this. And Dr. Bowman is an assistant professor at Cedarville University in Ohio, United States. And he's a assistant professor of missions and theology with a specialization in evangelism. So I'm looking forward to all he has to offer here. And take it away, Dr. Bowman.
Well, thank you so much. First, I want to share my screen here so you can see. But what I would say is I love Africa. We spent 8 years of our life after we were first married. We went as missionaries for 8 years among the Bemba people of Zambia. 3 of my children were actually born in Zambia. We have 4 children, and what an amazing thing!
So sorry to interrupt you. It's awesome to have you. I'm going to ask you to slow down a little bit further if you could. And it's a little bit of a discipline, but we've got this. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I love Africa. We spent 8 years working among the Bemba people of Zambia. We have 4 children. 3 of our children were born during our time of living in Africa. So it is near and dear to my heart and to my family's heart. And then looking at something like African traditional religion, what a huge thing to try to begin to tackle. But I want to try to capture a few of the main things, remembering that there are 1.4 billion people on the whole continent and all the countries and all the diversity. And also realizing that obviously not everyone in Africa believes the same thing. From Muslims in the north and Christians all throughout and many other religions that are here. So probably a big question for many who would be impacted by really the worldview and yes, the religion of ATR would be the question you see there: what rituals and practices might lead to my fulfillment and success? So it's a very individual question that impacts lots of communities. So how can we overcome some of these things? Because there is a belief that there are powerful spiritual forces, and we'll define what some of those are, that influences me and it influences you and our community. So what goes on in daily life is more than just what we see. And there's very much an understanding that the physical world, the things that we touch and we see and interact with, and the spiritual world are intersecting regularly. So the spiritual world and these spiritual forces have some type of impact and influence. We'll discuss that more as well. So a lot of what African traditional religion is trying to figure out is, what is causing these things that are happening to me? If it's a good thing, how can I continue that? If it's a problem or a hardship or maybe a sickness or a death, how can we stop those things? So as we look at ATR, again, we're going to make generalizations. So we're going to see lots of similarities, but we're also going to see there's no uniform, singular set of beliefs where everybody, everywhere, every country, every tribe believes. So I want to be really careful with that. Part of the challenge is when you study other religions, you're going to find that normally there's a founder. Usually there's some written text. Usually there's some authority, a person or a group of people that helps to define this is absolutely what it is. There are these core doctrines. Well, the challenge with ATR is there is no one founder. There is no one text. There's no set of creeds or doctrines that say, hey, Africans everywhere, every place must believe these things. That's really not at all true. So what are some of the basics? And I think you would agree that overall the desire would be for just this pursuit and recovery of harmony. So right relationship with God, right relationship with others, right relationship with creation, so that people can experience the things that you see there. Protection, because there's things that are going to harm them. That they would have health, because the experience of people is just sickness and death. And there is there's a broken world, something is wrong, and we need to do something to try to stop evil from happening. So there are just real needs and concerns. So it's very practical. There's something that I need in my life. And when Africans learn about this religion, or maybe worldview would be as good of a term, it's not normally through formal instruction. So even as they get together, it's not that they're studying from a book and they're being taught, believe this and do this and memorize this, but it's more through the normal experiences and just observing what others do. Maybe they see their village or their headman or their chief or their parents do certain things. So they're observing, they're seeing, they're mimicking, they're repeating what they've seen before. So without the text, many of those things are taught through oral tradition. So stories around a campfire, getting together with a grandparent. So there's the sharing of myths and beliefs. And maybe another really important way is through Proverbs. Short, little pithy, interesting sayings that would communicate things that could then be fleshed out a little bit. So there's a shared framework of values and concerns. So when I talk about African traditional religion, that's really what I'm talking about. This framework of general beliefs. There's lots of different examples. So we're trying to kind of look at this grid. It's a grid of interpreting kind of the physical and the spiritual world. Well, a big question, if you talk to an individual or especially academics, is this a religion? Is there one African traditional religion that would be like true of everyone? Or are we really talking about African traditional religions with an S on the end that would mean, hey, all of them are really distinct? And while we're going to for sure see there's so much diversity, you might be in a village close by or one people, and maybe you would only go, let's say 10, 20 kilometers, and you would find a lot of diversity maybe between different tribes that close. But you also might go somewhere on one side of the continent in Nigeria, and then maybe go down to South Africa, people that are geographically very far away, but you will find some similarities in basic worldview and some things that come together. A lot of other religions that you have studied in this course will have been very philosophical, very abstract, very kind of text-based, and really, ATR is the antithesis of that. A lot of ways, the opposite, because it's a religion of the people, of the common man, the common woman, their everyday lives. It's very concrete, very accessible, very relevant to the real needs, real questions right there in the home. It also answers the questions about local needs, concerns. So there are solutions that are very individual or maybe to the tribe, but there's also like recognizable themes and underlying beliefs and presuppositions that people would have. Another thing to think about with ATR is it would be probably uncommon for you to walk into, whether it be a village or to walk into any major city, maybe it's in Nairobi or Johannesburg or other major cities, and to say, are you a follower of ATR? Most probably would not define it that way. In fact, ATR thrives where other religions exist. So even where you would find Islam or where you would find Christianity, you would find for many Africans, these underlying assumptions and beliefs about how the world is would still be impacting them. Again, for many religions, they would hate syncretism, to say, hey, you can't mix this belief with another religion. In many ways, African traditional religion, ATR, would kind of thrive in that and say, that's okay. So in many ways, as you read about world religions textbooks, they kind of want to throw like animism and ATR together. Well, there's a link here that I want to draw, but also to say it's not exactly the same thing. So a definition of animism would help. Galen Van Reenen in his book gives this definition that you can see. So look at it here with me. Animism is a belief that personal spiritual beings and impersonal spiritual forces have power over human affairs. So there are spiritual things that affect us. We got that. And consequently, human beings must discover what beings and forces are influencing them to determine future action and frequently to manipulate their power. So the basic belief, there are lots of forces out there. We don't know all that they are, but they influence our daily physical life, the decisions that we make, and whether we're sick or whether we die. So we need to find out. We need to appease them if they want to be made happy. If they're angry, we might need to give a sacrifice. So this is similar in some ways with ATR, because in ATR, generally across Africa, there are powers that influence spiritual beings and they assert their power over us. And this causes a lot of fear and anxiety. So part of the motivation for why people do what they do, whether it be rituals or visiting a medicine man or some of the beliefs, is there's this fear and anxiety that if something bad has happened, there's a reason for it. It's not that Africans don't believe in science. That would be wrong to think that in any way. But they do believe if a disease comes into my body, yes, I understand that a mosquito bit me and I have malaria, but they may ask the question, well, why did the mosquito bite me? Who sent the mosquito to bite me? Who put a curse on me so that this mosquito found me in particular and infected me with this disease? So there's a lot of fear and anxiety there. So overall, there would be this desire to try to understand and control and make sure that whatever powers are out there that influencing me and my children, that I will have peace and I'll have harmony. And overall as well, within ATR and Anism, there's a suspicion. If I get sick, but my neighbor's not sick, maybe they did something. Who caused this? What caused this? Why did this happen in particular? So one more slide here before we get to some other points is really the idea of power. Understanding power dynamics in Africa and in ATR is really important. Another author in his book, Religion in Africa, look at this quote. It says this, the essence of animism is power. Power of the ancestor to control those of his lineage. Power of an evil eye to kill a newborn or ruin a harvest. Power of planets to affect earthly destiny. Power of the demonic to possess a spiritist. Power of magic to control human events. Power of impersonal forces to heal a child or make a person wealthy. So there's just this general belief that things happen, whether good or bad, because there are spiritual forces that we can't see, that we don't even necessarily know, that are acting and influencing. So a big part of ATR is somebody needs to know what this power is, why it's happening. So this is where in ATR, the specialist, often called a medicine man, we're going to talk about some other names for them, are needed to find out what's wrong, how these spirits can be pleased, what do they want, and how can I make sure that all of these forces act on my behalf for my good, ultimately for that goal. Remember, what is that overall goal? It's harmony and peace. So part of the hard thing in ATR, you can see the bullet point down, there's just ambiguous circumstances have spiritual causation. So it can cause a lot of fear. You know, if something bad is happening and you don't know why, your child gets sick, or maybe your child isn't doing well at school, or maybe there's drought in your area. There's something behind that. So the negative motivation for adherents of ATR to kind of engage and do things is fear. You can see that down at the bottom. The negative motivation is fear. I'm afraid that if I don't do the right thing, I'll be cursed, my family, my community, my tribe. But the positive motivation, on the other hand of that, is harmony. I want to live at peace with the spirits, with God, if they believe in God, with people in my community, and ultimately with earth as well. So you could just see practical considerations for what they want. And that's going to lead us kind of in the next step here in the next few minutes about how did things start and what went wrong and maybe how can they be remedied. So maybe I'll pause there for just a minute.
Excellent, Dr. Bowman. Thank you. That's a really wonderful introduction. And I actually learned a lot there. And I think our African students will be able to take that in and especially the point regarding fear and anxiety as a kind of a motivation for pursuing ATR and looking for the remedy for those anxieties through that. You know, there's a lot of anxiety in this country, and so there's not a great difference there in our human nature.
Yeah.
But the other thing that struck me is that in Africa, perhaps the sense of being more relational, in that they're looking for harmony interrelationally with God and with one another. So there's more of a sense of family, and that's a healthy thing. And that's I'm looking forward to hearing more about these things as we move on. So we're going to take a short break now, and then we'll come back for our content video. So let's break there, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thank you.
Thank you.